Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Hello, lovely people of the world. Welcome to week 6 of this semester. And in this week, we are going to take a deeper dive into authentic assessments. Now, this topic is very much related to our second assignment, task and rubric development, in which you are required to develop an alternative assessment task. But before you get to develop or proceed with the assignment, let's establish a very clear understanding of what authentic assessments really are. So without further ado, marilah kita mulakan dengan slide-nya. Di manakah? Gitu. Alright. Traditional assessment. So, we are going to take katanya a deeper dive into authentic assessments. But before we get to do that, let us have a clear understanding of what traditional assessment is. Then only we are going to have a look at authentic assessments pula. And by doing that, you have a better idea of how these two really differ from one another. All right. I'm also going to throw in another term into our discussion today, which is alternative assessments. So now you have three terminologies. Terkeluar di situ. The first one is traditional assessment. The second one is alternative assessment. And the third one is authentic assessment. Now, these three assessments are very common assessment methods within classroom settings. And we need to know which is which, at what time are they desirable to be conducted, so that we are able to implement effective assessments in our classroom as teachers. Right, so in this video, I'm just going to focus on traditional assessments, and we are going to look at alternative and authentic assessment in the second part of the video. Oleh itu, teruskan. This is me at the moment. Perhaps not at the moment. This is me all the time. Okay, teruskan. Traditional assessment. Why are they called traditional? Why are they not called like prehistoric assessments or conventional assessments or maybe hip assessment, for example? So traditional assessments are the oldest form of assessment, and that is why they are called traditional, since human beings first felt the desire to measure learning, hence jadilah traditional assessments. And the best way to describe traditional assessments is through providing you guys with the examples of traditional assessment: tests, quizzes, and examinations. In fact, some conventional type of assessment, pen and paper based assessments such as written assignments, not all, but some written assignments can also be classified as traditional assessment. All right, so those will be the example. But what exactly are traditional assessment? So we have covered general principles of assessment, formative versus summative, formal versus informal. So test is a type of formal assessment and formative in nature, because test provides teachers with information of learning pertaining to student progress. All right. On the other hand, examinations, I'm trying to describe things without looking at the slide, and I'm trying to remember what the slide says. Okay, so this is me scrambling my head, trying to figure out what to say. Okay. On the other hand, examination is a form of formal assessment, but summative in nature, because examinations provide teachers with evidence of learning pertaining to overall achievement. So both of these assessments are formal because ada markah. So there's score implications. So when there is score involved, it's always formal assessment. Okay. But what exactly is traditional assessment? Traditional assessment is teacher structured, okay, which means that teachers are the one who decides and determine the content of the assessment. Because it is structured by teachers, the students or the candidates do not have any freedom to decide the directions or the manner that they want to present their answers. I'll get to that in a short while. Okay, it is also contrived. There's a bit of overlap between these two characteristics. Uh, it is contrived in the sense that it's very limiting. For example, you have learned so much, but then when the teacher asks questions, the questions on the topic that you know a lot about, the question does not ask you to elaborate, for example. Hence, it's very limiting, and you are not given the freedom to express everything that you know about that particular item or about that particular topic. Okay, let's look at this example or item. This is a common way of asking items in tests or examination. So, for example, state two main contributing factors that propelled Portuguese as the maritime power in the 15th to 16th century. Okay, so this item, of course, because it's item in test and exam, is very much teacher structured in the sense that you are not allowed to argue. You are not allowed to elaborate. You can even write an essay about this because the question has explicitly stated that you only need to state. Okay? And how many? State only two. Say, for example, you are a very good student. You have done a lot of research on this particular topic. You studied a lot and you know, like, you have mountain of knowledge when it comes to this topic. And suddenly, in the exam, when it comes to Portuguese as the main maritime power, there's only one question asked. And this one question only asks you to state. So it's very limiting. You know a lot, but you can't express everything that you know. You can even flex about it. Okay. And you are only required to state and only state two. Okay, so the manner students present their answers in traditional assessment is very much dictated by the teacher. It's the teacher who controls the power to how questions and the answer to the question should be presented by the students. All right. But if we were to change these questions into an alternative assessment task, for example, let's say that we turn this into a question for presentation. So it will sound somewhere along the line of present the main contributing factors that that propelled Portuguese as the maritime power in the 15th to 16th century. Now, the moment we shift this question from test or exam based item to an alternative assessment task, students automatically have more autonomy tidak ada suara, to decide the directions that they can take to present the learning that they have acquired on this topic. So even with a simple task such as presentation, now students get to decide, do I want to use PowerPoint slides? Do I want to bring in real objects to the class? Should I bring in the objects of, for example, old yard or ship just to do my introduction? Should I cakap dah tak betul should I project a video in my projector or in my slides, for example? So should I talk about 5 points? Should we have a bit of role play or sketch as our introduction? So there's like a plethora of ways and mechanisms that students can indulge themselves and decide what's the best way that they can present how much have they learned of this topic. So in a way, that's what it means by being contrived and being very structured, because it limits students from the ability to showcase the wealth of knowledge and skills that they have acquired. All right. I think that's like a lot of examples already. Faham kan? Teruskan. Okay. Masa ni lah nak terbatuk kan? Masa tak bercakap tak terbatuk pula. Alright. I'm going to pause my video for a few seconds so that I can batuk and then I will continue, okay? Okay, my video has decided untuk tidak mendengar cakap dan tidak mendengar arahan, maka tidak di-pause. Tak apalah, teruskan ya. Okay. Remember during the first class, I showed you this. Nampak ke tidak you all? Okay, let me just get this out of the picture. Okay, so we do assessments because we want to measure how much have students learned. Of course, whatever things that we learn go to here, right? Okay, but the thing about using traditional assessments, the thing about using tests and examinations as a basis of our assessment is we want to measure this, but we end up using a set of question paper as a medium to infer how much learning has been acquired here. So say for example, inilah kertas soalan katakanlah. Alright. So in a way, traditional assessment provides indirect evidence of learning. Evidence of learning is how much have students learned. Okay. So we want to measure this, but we prepare a set of questions and students answer these questions. And the responses provided by students in these questions, can I get myself? Okay. We use it as a basis to infer how much learning have been acquired. Okay. So you need to understand that there's no way, regardless of how remarkable your test or your examination is, there's no way your test and your examination could have captured accurately what goes on in here. All right. Even though you have taught students for 3 months, there's no way that you could have asked questions that capture the entire 3 months of learning. And there's no way students will be able to write down every single thing that they have learned on this piece of paper. So in comparison between traditional assessment and authentic assessment, which we'll get to after this video, is that traditional assessment is less reliable and less valid in comparison to authentic assessment, particularly when the construct or the learning that you are measuring is not cognitive, especially if the learning is affective or psychomotorically, is that even that word, related? Ada ke psychomotorically? Anggap je lah ada ya. Or psychomotor based learning. Okay, so this is what this slide actually means. It provides indirect evidence of learning. You want to measure this? Mana kau? Okay. Tapi kita gunakan ini pula sebagai asas untuk mengukur kemampuan pelajar. Oh, cakap bahasa Melayu. Okay. Right. So, I think I have few slides missing, tapi tak apalah. Another limitation to traditional assessment is that it is perhaps appropriate to learning related to cognitive, related to rationalizations, justifications, all those related to your thinking. But when you are measuring skills, psychomotor skills or affective skills such as value, attitudes, dispositions perhaps, then it's very difficult to measure this through the use of traditional assessment. We need a complex assessment that could capture accurately the complexity of learning related to affective and psychomotor. Okay, so in a gist, we have looked at traditional assessments and their limitations. But despite all these limitations, why do assessment administrators uh, globally, whether it's schools or higher learning institutions, why do we still use traditional assessment? Why can't we just abandon traditional assessments altogether and just go forward with alternative assessments? Kan banyak kekurangan, limiting lah, contrived lah, structured lah. Tapi kita masih menggunakan traditional assessments. We still have SPM, STPM, final examination that are very much based on traditional assessment. Kenapakah? Rasa-rasanya kalau saya jawab, nanti saya bagi jawapan kepada soalan artikel review gitu. So it will be a very interesting point that we can discuss in class later. All right. Do read up on the advantages of traditional assessment. Despite all of its limitations and disadvantages, traditional assessments have a special place in educators' hearts because of certain characteristics. Okay, now this would be what you have to read up and find information with regard to the answer to one of the article review questions. Alright, semua student yang ku sayangi, that will be all for traditional assessment. I'll be looking forward to see you guys in my second video with authentic assessment pula. Cakap pun dah tegak-gagap dah ni. Okay, bye semua. Take care. Love you. Bye.